So the recipe I'm going to be doing is the whole wheat sandwich bread. I'm going to do it my way by switching out some of the ingredients to make it a vegan version, because that's the so I'm going to be making 100% whole wheat sandwich bread. I'm going to be making it a vegan version because the ingredients that I have at my house are vegan ingredients. But you are welcome to make it any way that you want to make it. I'm just going to follow step by step how this recipe goes, just switching out for vegan options. So it calls for 2 tablespoons of orange juice. I have an actual orange and I'm just going to juice it. But if you have like carton juice or like juice you get in the refrigerated section, you can use orange juice that way. And then it calls for lukewarm water. And another thing I'm switching out is the butter. So I'm using a plant-based vegan butter instead of using regular butter. Again, you can use your choice. 3 cups of traditional whole wheat flour. So I am going to be using whole wheat flour. But instead of whole wheat, mine's organic. That's the only difference. And it's still King Arthur. And then 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm assuming it's just a sugar, so I'm assuming it's just like a white sugar or a granulated sugar. But if you want to change that, I'm sure that like a coconut sugar or something like that might work. I don't know about brown sugar or even stevia or whatever. I don't know if that would work. But you're welcome to try that and let me know how that worked. The next thing is dried potato flakes. Instead of that, I'm using potato starch. So I'm hoping that works out because that's all I have on hand is potato starch. And I'm not running to a store to get potato flakes. So it calls for non-fat dry milk. I don't personally use non-fat dry milk in my household, so I'm just going to try it with almond milk. Fingers crossed that works. And then the salt and the yeast, I'm keeping the same. So it's telling me to combine all of those ingredients and mix them by hand or in a mixer. I'm going to put them in my KitchenAid mixer with the bread attachment that I have, the bread mixer attachment. I forget what you call it. And it says mix them until you have a smooth dough. Cover and allow the dough to rise until it's puffy and nearly doubled in bulk, so 1 to 2 hours. So I'm going to mix in all of those ingredients. I'm going to knead the dough, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. And then the rest comes after that. So we don't have to worry about that right now, but I will be back after when the dough is done. I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so here's the dough after it's been mixed. I would say it took about 15 minutes, if not 20. And I did have to add in extra flour, so I'd say about a cup and a half of flour extra added, and it's still a little sticky. But I'm going to put it out onto a floured surface, and I'm going to just knead it with my hands for about another like 2 or 3 minutes just to incorporate it, and then I'll show you the next step. So this is my dough on a lightly floured surface, and I'm going to just show you a little technique on how to knead. So it's hard with one hand, but I pick up from the bottom, I push it to the top, and slide it out with my palm. And then I turn the dough, pick it up a little, slide it in with my palm. And you keep doing that until it's all into a nice ball. I think this recipe just needed a little extra love. I'm not going to give up on it. It was a little difficult with the ingredients and the measurements. But once you work with it, and that's the thing with making bread, is that you have to work with it. And you'll figure out the right amounts and everything as you go. So since I already had it mixing in the mixer, and that's been in the mixer for about 15 minutes trying to get the recipe right. I only kneaded it for a couple of rounds, so maybe like 5 or 6 rounds, and I made it into a nice little ball, and I made sure that it's not sticky and that it's smooth on the top. And I don't want to over knead the dough, so I'm just going to leave it like this, and I'm going to put it into a greased bowl. So I know that right now the dough is small, but I'm going to put it into a bigger bowl, just like a big bowl, because it's going to rise because of the yeast inside the dough, and it'll probably double in size. So you want to make sure you just have a big enough bowl that you can, so your dough can rise properly. So I'm going to take, you can use any kind of oil that you like, but normally I would use olive oil, but today I'm going to use some organic sunflower oil because that's what I have on hand. And I'm just going to pour a little bit into the bowl, and I'm going to take, you could take a paper towel, or you could take one of these little brushes and just coat the bowl, but you don't want it to be too oily. You just want it oiled enough so that the bread won't stick, or the dough won't stick. So some people, after this, I'm going to cover it, but you want to let this rest for about 1 to 2 hours till it doubles in size. And some people have on their ovens, they have a proofer button, and you can, that means that when you put it in the proofer, it's a warm area, and it helps the dough rise quicker. But a little trick that I like to do is just turn the oven on to the lowest temperature, and it also helps to preheat the oven for when you need it baked. It won't take as long to preheat. But I put it on the lowest temperature, and then that way it gives it a warm area to rise, dough to rise. I don't put it in the oven. I don't put the dough in the oven. I leave it on the stovetop. Another trick that I learned while I was in culinary school is to outline the size of your bread after you, so I put plastic saran wrap over my bowl, and I put it over tightly, and I just drew a circle around the dough that's inside the bowl on top of the plastic wrap, so that it'll show you if you come back in like a half an hour, you can see that because the dough is bigger than the circle on the top, it's expanding. So it'll show you when it's doubled in size, when it's doubled from this original circle. That's just a trick that I learned in culinary school, and I wanted to share it with you. But now I'm just going to put it off to the side of my stove, into the back on the top, and I'm just going to let it rest for 2, maybe 1 to 3 hours. So I'll come back once this is risen and doubled in size. Okay, so I'm back, and it's been about an hour and a half. I just want to show you before I take off the plastic wrap. You can definitely tell from the circle that it's gotten bigger, and there's air in the plastic, so it's definitely doubled in size enough to take it out and go on to the next step. Alright, this is what it looks like, and you want to pat it down just to get all the air out of it, because a lot of that's just air. And I'm going to go to my handy dandy cookbook and see what the next step they say is. Okay, so we combined all the ingredients, we made the dough. So it says, cover and allow the dough to rise until it's puffy and nearly doubled in size in bulk, 1 to 2 hours. Then you need to lightly grease an 8.5 by 4.5 inch loaf pan. Gently deflate the dough and shape into a 8-inch log. Place in prepared pan. So the bottom says if you want to make a braided loaf, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make a basic loaf. So I'm going to do the next step, and I will come back and show you what that looks like. So I did the next step, which was to deflate all the air in the dough and to shape it into a log and put it in your little loaf pan. So this is about a 9-inch loaf pan. And then the next step in this, cover the loaf gently and lightly, grease plastic wrap or a proof cover to allow it to rise till it's covered about 1.5 inches over the rim of the pan. Near the end of the bread's rising time, preheat the oven to 350. So I guess it wants you to let it rise again. I'm going to check it in about 20-25 minutes and see if it's doubled in size or if it needs, or it's doubled to the correct size that the book says, and show you what it looks like at that. And if it needs more time, I'll give it more time. Okay. Alright, so I gave the bread ample time to rise again. So this is the second rise, and it's in its pan and it's risen. So I put the temperature on the oven at 350, and I'm going to bake it. I'm going to put it in the oven, and then I'm going to look at my recipe book and tell you how long it should bake for. So I'll be back after that. Okay, so according to my baking book, it says that you should uncover the bread and bake for 35 minutes, tenting it with foil after 15 minutes. This bread is done when it's golden brown, and an instant read thermometer insert in the center reads 190. Remove it from the oven after a minute so, and turn onto rack. Brush with melted butter if desired. This will keep the crust soft. Cool the bread for 30 minutes before slicing. So our next step is it's in the oven, and you gotta wait 15 minutes. So I'll put my timer on 15 minutes, and then you want to put aluminum foil and then bake it for another 20. So I took out the bread, and it's been in for 15 minutes, and I put a little tent over it with aluminum foil, and I'm going to put it back in the oven for another 20 minutes. And I'll be back to show you the finished product. This is the finished product. It's been 35 minutes. I took off the aluminum foil, took it out of the oven, and it's golden brown like the book said. Don't mind the hole. I just poked it with a little knife just to see if the center was cooked, and it does seem cooked. It just seems soft. So it's like a soft wheat bread. So not a crusty wheat bread. And probably didn't get that much of a crust because of the aluminum foil. But I'm going to take this and let it I'm going to let it cool, and then I'm going to freeze it. I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to freeze it so that we have extra bread, because I know the stores right now, due to the coronavirus, are running low on things. So if I have the ingredients here at my house to make bread, I'm going to make bread. We're just going to make best of the situation that's ahead of us. So I want to thank you all for watching my video. If you want to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'm going to post this also on my Facebook page. So I'll put that in the description box, and I'll put the recipe. If you have any questions or comments, you can always write a comment below and let me know what you think of this recipe. And if you try it at home, let me know how it turns out for you. Thank you all. Hope you enjoy.